Hello, I am Linda Berberich. I am the founder and chief learning architect for Linda B Learning. And today I'm talking with Prosper about some of the work that I do in the learning technology space and some of the innovations that have been changing how people learn.
Hello again to you. I'm Prosper Taruvinga, your host on the Online Prosperity Show, the number one spot for diving deep into life-changing methods, ideas, and insights from trailblazers like our guest today. We are going to be uncovering the pain points that literally keep you up at night, and we bring the experts who have actually cracked the code with exclusive solutions that you can't get anywhere else. Now, today, we're joined by somebody who blends machine learning driven education, innovation, and a bit of theatrical pizzazz. Now, Linda, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Prosper. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. And for those that are watching on video, could you just maybe explain again the essence of that red room that you've got going on there? It just really took me aback when you explained it to me.
Yeah, so this is the Adobe room. It's my home office. So it's really a reddish brown, kind of based in an Aztec Mayan motif. It's just really, really good for provoking thoughtfulness. And yeah, it's one of many themed rooms in my house. Each room has a different feel, a different vibe.
Absolutely. Just like each and every one of us watching right here, we all are coming from a diverse, history, past or background. And I bet in the conversation we're going to have with Linda today, each and every one of us is going to see a little glimpse of themselves. Now, before we actually jump on, now, Linda is Dr. Linda Jean Berberich, okay? And before we all get too excited, we should address her by her actual credentials. She's the founder and chief learning architect at Linda B Learning LLC, and Linda has literally performed on ice alongside Dorothy Hamill. And that's the reason why I'm a little bit starstruck right now, because as she will tell you, Dorothy was actually an American figure skater and 1976 Olympic champion. And I don't know if I got that right, but I had to look it up, just so that I really understand the gravity of the person we've got on the show today. So what that means is, she's not afraid to skate onto new territory. And obviously, it's one of those things that we never really understand about ourselves. But when we look backwards, we will then be able to connect all the dots. So, Linda, thank you so much for braving both the rink and the learning tech frontier with us. I think you are a truly multidisciplinary marvel. Now, to get us started and everything else, before I, start saying things I'm not even qualified to talk about, tell us a little bit about your journey, and especially that first time you actually laced up your skates with Dorothy Hamill.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So when I was in my mid-30s, I took a little bit of a break from my tech career and decided to go back to school and work on a second master's degree in kinesiology. The program that I went to, they required you to have an application sport. And I'd been a hockey player as a young person, played through college, and so I was going to use hockey as my application sport. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, but I got redirected to working with the figure skaters. I knew nothing about figure skating. I was a little bit shamed by the athletes that I ended up working with, because they would ask me, well, what level did you get to? I'm like, oh, no, I can't skate on those skates. I can skate on hockey skates. But so they were the ones who kind of cajoled me. And so when I was the ripe old age of 40, I laced up some figure skates and started my journey. And within a couple of years, I did a camp with Dorothy Hamill. I ended up doing a lot of her off-ice conditioning for her as well as part of that camp, as well as participating as a skater. And yeah, I learned how to do her famous Hamel camel spin. I learned how to do her goblet spin, and she is the most delightful person. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for starting us off from that. So you did mention you took a break from a tech career. Let us know a little bit about what it is that you were doing there and, why you decided to take a break.
Yeah, so I've been building technology since I was a teenager. So I wrote my first program there was to help me memorize lines. I was a theater student, and it was just much more efficient to run lines with my computer program than with other people so that I could memorize them. So those kinds of tasks where you have to memorize stuff, computers are awesome at that. By the time I got into my undergraduate degree, I was writing my first branching technologies that allowed people to create their own, choose their own adventure stories in HTML, and then just started pursuing that kind of work up until I finished my doctorate, started building these adaptive learning technologies. That's what I came out to Seattle to do, was to work for a school for learning differences. Met up with Paul Allen, built the first online school, and then eventually made my way to Silicon Valley. But along that journey, I experienced a lot of challenges in the workplace, a lot of misogyny. Because of my advanced degree, people were a little intimidated by that. And the fact that I was very hands-on, I can build things and code myself. So I didn't need other people to build the things for me. I could create my own prototypes. So having some negative experiences, I decided to go a little deeper into the other area of my life, which is in kinesthetic learning. So that's why I went back and got that master's degree. And then ended up combining the two, where I was developing exercise video games and looking at things like the Xbox Kinect. And then eventually it just got to the point where I wanted to spend more time in the tech world. And that's when I made the jump to Silicon Valley around 2008, and been at it ever since.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that exploration of your past and how it all sort of comes together. Now, Linda, I mean, obviously, like you said, you were working in an environment where people sort of underestimated your actual capabilities and things of that nature. Now, the tech space, obviously, as you say, was lined up with a lot of, it was like a masculine sort of environment and things of that nature. What was that like, just so that people have an understanding of what you were up against?
Yeah, well, a couple of things too. I was very young when I finished my doctorate, so I was in my mid 20s. So in addition to being a woman, also being a younger woman. So there, you had a little bit of the ageism piece. This was not before, this is the early days of tech in the 90s, when it wasn't just, well, the younger you are, the more innovative you are. And so I had some challenges with that. So I spent a lot of years in my early career trying to defend myself and to present the ideas and to talk about it. And what I learned later in my career is to be about it and to not argue with people who are committed to not understanding you, or maybe can't see what your vision is, and just building the things yourself, and then just bringing them to the table and saying, here, this is the thing I've been talking about. What do you think? And then letting them play with it. Instant credibility, instant undeniability as well, I might add.
Absolutely. And obviously you got that figured out. And with all this sort of success, is there any sort of things or projects that you worked on that we might actually recognize and be proud of?
Well, the fact that we have branching technology in e-learning tools like Captivate and Storyline and those kinds of things, that came directly from work that I did. That HTML tool I was telling you about as an undergraduate, in the early 2000s, I took that technology, combined it with what was at the time called Macromedia's Dreamweaver, and built the branching technologies to be able to be used with an authoring tool. We won a Macromedia Innovative E-Learning Award for that work. Very shortly after that, Adobe bought Macromedia and then created what we called Captivate, and what you see in Captivate with that branching technology was from that work. So that was back in 2003, 2004. Done a few other things since then, but that one, for people in the authoring space, I mean, people use Storyline to this day. Yeah, and then just the idea that you can build authoring tools instead of having to learn how to code. Like when I was writing that first program that I wrote, that was on an Apple IIe. That's when we had programs on one floppy disk and the operating system on the other floppy disk, and feeding in a script like Shakespeare, like, for example, let's say Macbeth. That activity alone was so much more arduous than what it could do today. Like if I were to build the exact same program today using where we are with AI, it would be almost instantaneously that I could build that same program and be able to continue to feed it different scripts. So now we're doing the importance of being earnest, and now we're doing, hurly burly. So I could feed in different scripts now and be able to do that much, much quicker. And I might still build that up because it would be fun to see if I could it's kind of like those people who have the pictures of them and then they recreate the picture. Same idea, but with an app.
Absolutely. I mean, you must be just laughing at the people that showing people, look, mom, I can computer now, because you literally invented the whole sort of operating system. And back in that time, machines, as you say, were not as fast and advanced as they are now, with things of that nature. Is that when you then decided or started seeing that I need to teach other people how to learn how to use these devices?
A lot of it really was just how I was as a person, period. When I was a little kid, I always picked up immediately in class. So I would get the assignment done quickly. And so I'd be that kid who'd go over and help another kid because they weren't catching on so fast. That's what I see happen with technology. People get scared of technology. They get scared of science. They get scared of math. And the tech bros, unfortunately, lean into that, right? And they're like, oh, this is not for you. You can't do this. And I want to, and in my work and the people that I choose to work with and take on as clients, those are those people that have been told this is not for you. Tech is for everybody. And the more that everybody's involved in the design, the development of tech, and you don't have to learn these skills to be an engineer at a big FANG company. You learn the skills because you have a problem you want to solve. And then you build like mine, I need to learn how to memorize lines and not harass my friends and family, right? So that's where some of the best tech comes from is I have a problem I need to solve. How can I use technology to help me solve that problem?
Absolutely. And once you can solve that problem and you can solve it for other people, that's exactly what entrepreneurship and maybe really creating useful products comes
Yes.
from. Now, if we look back, was there maybe a defining moment that you then realizes, you know what, I think what I'm actually meant to do, instead of fighting with the tech bros, I actually need to architect new ways of learning?
Yeah. I've had a pretty traumatic experience when my father passed away back in 2022. It was just very sudden. I was working for a fraud identity tech company, actually in Washington State at the time. And I was in a learning session when I got the call that my dad was in the hospital. And then shortly after that, he ended up passing away. And then I got flowers on Tuesday from the company. And on Friday, as I'm driving up to Canada to prepare, my dad's, celebration of life with my brothers and my family up there, I got the call that I was laid off. And so that really sort of, because I created brilliant things for that company in terms of learning, and I actually was able to crack their code in terms of their decision querying language, which they'd tried to hire several different people to get inside the head of the very intelligent person who created that customized code. And I was able to do that in addition to a lot of other things. So it was very devastating. And plus being coupled with the passing of my father, who I was very close to, it was all that. Do I really want to go through, putting my heart and soul into things for people? And they're just, you're part of the family until you're not. And then I decided, like this, I want to be able to work with people I want to work with on projects. I can work with anybody. I found that out, and I can bring out I had that, very difficult to work with person who's brilliant in the palm of my hand from the first meeting because I led with empathy, right? I had heard that he was a hard case. I also did a lot of my homework before meeting with him so that I could anticipate his questions and where he might go and how I might be able to solve his problems for him. And so I discovered that it's like, yeah, you can work with anybody. Do you want to do that though? Do you want to be putting how much time you spend, who you work with, where you work with, all of those things into someone else's hands? Or do you want to just take your skill set and figure out how to work with people you want to work with? I mean, if it would be different if I was brand new, but I'm not brand new. I've worked with lots of people. I'm pretty friendly. I do outreach like this all the time. And I just, I want to help people do the best they can. So that's, I come from a very genuine place in terms of how I do my work. And being able to be my own boss, having my own solopreneurship allows me that freedom to do that. And I have not at all regretted that decision. In fact, I wish I would have, you say you wish you would have done it sooner, but then sometimes I also think, no, you need to have the experiences that you have to demonstrate to yourself that, yes, you have the skill set that you think you have, especially when you get beat down a lot and you have people, telling you things. And as you get older, and there is that ageism thing that comes to bear that never goes away. But so far, like I said, making that pivot into solopreneurship it's been awesome. I'm loving working with my clients.
Lily, I'm sorry to hear about your dad, and obviously the fact that they didn't have the empathy to then, the same delivery van that came with the flowers also came with a message that you can no longer come back and things of that nature. That's just, too much to handle, especially when you're going through that sort of stuff. Now, if we could just maybe go there a little bit, how instrumental was dad in, obviously, all the times that all this was happening to you, your education and just your trajectory in and of itself?
Oh, so I could talk about that from so many different angles. So I mentioned that I'm from Canada. I grew up in British Columbia in a very small farming community. My dad was actually an immigrant from Germany. He was one of the last surviving this is the story that I'd always been told, one of the last surviving Germanic tribes before the Ottoman Empire actually conquered that part of Germany and it became a part of Germany. So, considered German indigenous, for whatever that means. My father was born in 1931, and came to Canada in 1950, which means he survived living in Germany during World War II. He survived his school being bombed. He survived occupation because of the part of Germany he lived, it was occupied by American soldiers during that time of his life. So he had a lot of interactions with American culture via the occupation of the soldiers who were there, when there was, famine lines and all kinds of things, as Germany, as any country, when they recover from bombing and being at war. People who've not been through that experience have no idea what it's like to actually live through war, like live through things being bombed. So by the time he came to Canada, and he had a very empathetic viewpoint and perspective and how he wanted to raise his family. And so fortunately, he moved to a part of Canada that's very much like the part of Germany he lived in, because he was a naturalist and an outdoorsman kind of person. I got a lot of that experiences from him. So in addition to this very, in your head kind of work that I do in tech, I also am very grounded because I also grow. That's also a big part, and also know how to fish, how to read a lake, how to go foraging for different plants. And I learned that from my father. And my father also encouraged me to question everything, to not believe just because I'm a girl that I couldn't do math and science. I absolutely demonstrated that every single day I went to school. And he would, when I got my PhD, he would always tell me that, he goes, you can still learn a few things from your old dad. And I'm like, absolutely, Dad, you can learn anything from anybody if your mind is open to that. And anything is a learning experience, even when things don't go your way, as long as you can think, what am I taking away from this experience? It's valuable, right? And you've learned something. So a lot of and my dad also challenged me to be my best. Anything worth doing is worth doing well. So a lot of that perfectionism came there as well. And so he was a big part of my identity. And I was working for an identity company at the time. And we actually did exercises where we reflected on our cultural heritage as part of, the concept of identity. If that's what we're building tech around, what do we really mean? What does it mean to identify something? How do you define yourself versus how do other people define you? And how does technology impact that? And and it leads you to conversations about, is our technology biased, right? Facial recognition technology, is it biased? It is, right? It's like there's it's those kinds of conversations that we were able to have because we didn't stay at this. And that was the onboarding program, by the way, that I created for them. It was super cool where we were having that conversation. And it's sort of like culturally level set people. It's like, are we going about this in an ethical manner? Who are our customers and how are they using our technology? Because at the end of the day, we could always say, well, it's not us, it's how they implemented it. It's like, are you good with that though? So
Absolutely. Thank you so much for shedding light into that aspect of your life, because now this explains the larger than life fire that you now bring to the work that you do, because in part it might actually be somehow unconsciously a dedication to your father, who obviously at that time you were leaving full employment, that was also happening, and you're coming back to like a fresh sort of new slate, because anybody else would have quit if they didn't have that sort of energy behind the work that they are doing. I don't know, am I reading too much into things here?
well, I mean, it was a grieving process, so I'm not going to lie that July 2022, when my father passed away, August, that whole time frame, I remember actually, that was actually right at the beginning of August 2022, OpenAI came a courting and wanted to hire me, and I was just not in a headspace. And of course, that's before GTP 3.5 launched, right? So in November it launched, and I remember, being foggy, but going through it and just saying, harmony model, I'm not into it. This is not the direction you think you want. You think you want to go in this direction. You don't want to go in this direction. Here's why. And now here we are 3 years later and seeing all of the different sides of that generative AI coin, and particularly around ChatGPT and Sam Altman and the various perspectives on that. But so throw that into the mix alongside everything else. And so that latter half of 2022 was a difficult, tumultuous time, but the primordial ooze that occurs when the caterpillar transforms into the butterfly, it's not fun. Like change and transformation is never easy or comfortable, and that's sometimes life has to really life on you like that to get you to realize this is the change you need to be making for yourself. You don't need to be working for Microsoft directly. You don't need to be working for Google directly. Is that this, and that you can do the kind of work that you want to do, just put it into motion. So
Absolutely. And thank you so much for shedding light to that. Now, at Linda B Learning, you actually specialize in coaching teams to produce results in 4 months or less, right? Can you maybe unpack what that sort of process really looks like and why it works?
Yeah, so that's I have two primary offers, and that's one of them. So that's my level up learning consulting package. That's usually how I package it. So that I usually offer that to people who have a team in place, but they have an idea of what they want to build, but they don't necessarily have had the experience of ever innovating like that before. So I pretty much have learned over the years that the best way to teach people how to do a skill, a far transfer skill like that, is to do it with them on their own project. And so we start off right at the very beginning when we're building the vision, and I show them how visioning is done. The vision document that we create is a living document that runs through the life cycle of the project from the beginning of our inception, our kickoff, our conversations, all the way to when we launch that MVP. So we start off with creating that. I teach folks how to ideate, what that whole process looks like, using whatever tools they use. And if they don't know what tools to use, I can help there too and introduce ones to help build out that process. But we actually build with the team as we go. So I'm right there coaching them from once we got to how we're going to build out that first prototype and what iterative testing looks like. So we start to bring in people to start hammering on it, getting things worked out before we ever take it in front of a customer. And as we're going through the process of from the prototype and getting sign off on that, moving to what that final MVP is going to be, that's when I start to pull out and I'm more of a coach. The person who's the lead on the team is then taking over and stepping in, and I'm helping out where they need my assistance the most. A lot of times it's the next, planning out, okay, now we got the MVP, what comes after that? But yeah, it's a 4-month process. It works like clockwork. It's pretty much what I've done at the last 5 or 6 tech companies that I've worked for. And it was typically what people would hire me to do when I was working for learning companies that did consulting for big tech. So literally what I've done my entire career, only now I get to pick the projects and get to pick the clients.
Oh, absolutely. I like that. And also something that goes with your values and how you feel and how you want to be reacting and connecting with that particular thing. Now, obviously, when people kind of see how fast you deliver, I mean, obviously they will be impressed, but is there any unseen lessons from that sort of journey that, because you're taking all your years of experience and you're just putting it into that one thing, and people might just think, oh, that was easy, you know, so many people won't see it unless you point it out.
Well, part of what I like about the fact that we can package it is then that's a way for me to be generative, because when someone's worked through a project with me, now they have the skills to apply that to a different project or to a different team. And that in and of itself, like, I love peer learning programs. I've set them up at multiple different places as well. I love empowering people to help themselves. And people think, well, isn't that cannibalizing your own future business? Not at all, because I'm not a one-trick pony. There's often other places where people want, custom consulting, or they want specific feedback, because if I've demonstrated it once on one project, I can demonstrate again. So even though these are 4-month engagements, typically a lot of them I get done, like some of the work that I did at Authentic ID that I was describing, 2 months. It really depends on the nature of the project. And, they also are a variety of different projects. Some are live in-person training sessions. Some are embedded user assistance within apps. Some are apps themselves. Some are platforms. So there's all these different kinds of really cool mixtures of learning technology and learning experience design. So it's extended reality. I've done some augmented reality work as well. I've done work on holography, all kinds of different projects, because that's where the technology is now.
Absolutely. See, I'm probably not in the startup age, but, when we work with coaches and consultants, half of the things that a lot of people are looking for is money coming in. And for the work that you're doing, it looks like it has an investment connotation to it, but it is an expense on the part of the business with no sort of direct stripe notification immediately. Maybe you can let us know where the value that you bring to the table actually then translates to money in the bank.
Return on investment, ROI, is my main metric. And so when I'm talking about the vision at the very beginning, we're defining what that return on investment needs to look like and what is our horizon for making that. So we get that figured out very, very quickly before we really get down to business on how we're going to pay back the investment you spent on me and whatever other technology is being implemented, or whatever other costs are being impacted over the cost of the engagement. And I get amazing returns on investment. Like, that's kind of my hallmark, is that I am trying to help people save money and also do it well. Like, do the learning well.
Because if people don't understand how to use your product or be in whatever community or innovation that you've created, they're not going to use it. And there's going to be a lot more refunds than people actually there's no stickiness to it, and then you don't get to cross the chasm. But with AI, just like you've mentioned, the things that you used to do back in the time would take you ages and stuff like that, and now it's just a matter of prompting or putting things together. And many people might actually think that AI in education is just maybe a cookie cutter, or maybe it's impersonal. What's sort of a misconception that still surprises you, and how do you sort of debunk it when it comes to the work you do?
It's really never about the tools, but by the intentional design. Like, it never ceases to amaze me that people don't understand that you don't build a house without a blueprint. Like, you really do need to be intentional with, just because people have built these cookie cutter containers, and that's how I call them, right? So I want to build an online community. Great. What container are you going to use? But for me, even before that, and I was literally having this conversation on LinkedIn with a brilliant woman I'm going to say from Afropolitan, because I've just recently started following her work. And brilliant, and I recommend it highly because I think necessity is the mother of invention. So sometimes when you don't have a lot, you come up with creative uses, right? So some of the best tech is coming from places that have had to innovate out of necessity. Um, but yeah, I've lost my train of thought a little bit. Sorry.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know what I'm actually sensing from all of these things that we're talking about. I mean, your skating, the psychology, behavior analysis, and even your cultural roots, and now machine learning. They all sort of share something real deeper, and even the theatrical work. And I feel like it's just rhythm. You know, when something just flows, just, you're dancing in and out of all of these things that is now your expertise. And I feel like it's only you that can bring all of these things together, and the discipline of constantly delivering this. Now, how do you think maybe these early experiences that you've had and the person that you are really and secretly influence the work that you do today?
I think this is true of everybody. So I don't think I'm special in that regard, but I think everybody's special and unique in the experiences that they've had. So that makes them special and unique. Um, and so it's just a combination of all the different things. And for myself personally, having early experiences with movement and at a highly competitive level, and having that being a sort of like a through thread throughout my life, that's a particular type of learning, but it also levels out the other types of learning. So you've got this psychomotor learning, right? This your physical body moving that you first learn as a child when you first learn to walk and that kind of stuff. But the rate and depth and opportunities that you might have had visiting other, for me, I was very blessed. I got a chance to travel so many places, meet different folks, be in different kinds of circumstances my entire life. And so that really did help shape me to realize what we were talking about earlier. You can learn from anybody and anything if you put your mind to that. It's people talk about that as a level of humility, maybe cultural humility, but not humility like I don't think I'm good enough. It's not that at all. It's really being open to the fact that a person thinks differently from you, and that's an opportunity to learn something, right? And especially if you listen, because this whole idea of you learn what you listen. When you're speaking, you're just repeating things that you've already been told. But when you're listening, you have the opportunity to hear something new. And just knowing that the way that you were taught was not the way that everyone was taught. And so if you talk to people who've had different experiences from you, you're going to learn something. And that's true of everybody. And if you can take that, if you can remember that and not forget because of the messaging you receive from other people, then you are able to take your own unique web of experiences, maybe not necessarily ones that you loved, but then be able to see how they all tie together to help you do the work that is, your most impactful work, where you feel like you're standing in your purpose. And that's the most rewarding thing is all. Like thinking of that as, that's what motivates me. That's my primary measure of wealth is, how squarely are you doing the kind of work you want to be doing, and also honoring the other aspects of your life, the other things that are important, because it's not all about work at all. And at least it shouldn't be.
Oh, absolutely. All work and no play literally makes John a dull boy, as they say. And I've also noticed you're hosting, what do you call it, far transfer training sessions. And you're also rocking blended, amazing race type, onboarding. And I can feel like, it brings in that immersive learning experience and the fun part of it, because if you're not having fun, then there's not a lot of learning that's happening there, right?
Well, the Amazing Race one was super cool because the challenges, like what you would do on the Amazing Race, were literally putting you into different job roles in the company. So if you really want to understand how the product works, well, you're going to be, having an experience that a product person would go through. You want to understand how customer support deals with our customers, you're going to have an experience from that. You're going to have an experience from the sales team. So that's literally how those challenges were set up. So the whole beginning part where we were together and learning about identity and, creating psychological safety was prior to our actually running the race. So by the time we ran the race, it really put us in a place to really bond and get to know what we were doing as a company, each other because, that was right after COVID. So people had been working remotely. And yeah, that particular program, we had 2 cohorts through before I was let go, and highest rate, like people still talk to me today from there. And, like, I was like, oh yeah, base camp. And I'm like, yeah, base camp. And that company actually just got acquired, I saw. So I just was congratulating my old boss and letting him know. He's all like, yeah, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing really well, actually. So
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you've got a lot of success under your belt, from all the experiences that you've had. And if somebody's watching this right now and they think, oh, this could be the person that I need either for their team or for their own business, where can they go on the internet to maybe find out a little bit more about what you're doing, or maybe get in touch with you so you can maybe help them with their onboarding challenges?
yeah, so Linda B Learning, .com is my website. From there, you can see examples of my work. It'll link you to my newsletter, which goes in deep on the clients I work with, some of my perspectives around technology. My YouTube channel is also there, so you can see some past trainings I've done, seen examples of my clients' work. Um, testimonials, all the things. And you can book on my Calendly directly through my website as well. So that's usually where I direct people to go. And it's super easy to remember. It's just my name, Linda B. Learning.
Absolutely. Fantastic. This has been great. I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes, and then people can always make their way, to finding out what you're doing. But when we started, you literally showed us that you were right there when the internet was pretty much getting started. You literally an internet explorer. You've been going in and out of all the technologies and things of that nature. And when technologies were sort of coming up, they would headhunt you and seek you out so you can work with them. And now you're picking and choosing what projects you want to work with and on. What's next? What now that we're in your world, what are you working on, or what do you anticipate that we can maybe rally behind Linda B and watch you through and celebrate with you when you accomplish it?
A lot of it is, I always say, I'm not the candidate, I'm the campaign manager. So I'm really about making my clients look as phenomenal as possible. And right now, I am soft launching one of my clients, Camp Read-A-Rama, which I want to go all over the United States and eventually all over the world. It's basically literacy meets, Girl Scouts, if you will, or scouting. So it's not school, and it teaches kids how to live books. So the person who hired me is from the University of Washington currently. She's the Beverly Cleary Professor of Children's Literature. Brilliant, brilliant woman. It's going live in September. So this is basically going from her teaching these kinds of workshops live to librarians and teachers and other people who work with young children, boys and girls groups, those kinds of things. From all of this curriculum and her knowledge and her experiences and 15 years of service learning, taking that out of her head and making that come to life on an online program, which is also a learning portal where we have community, we have all the resources that people can download. Whew, that's been a big one, and that launches in September. So that's Camp Read-A-Rama, and I would love people around the world to know about it because it's the first code you crack is learning how to read.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. And now I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with us on the call today. I mean, your life story and your experience have got so much value for a lot of people. They just need, like you said, crack the code and maybe reach out to you and connect, see what else you can help them be, do, and have. So thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. What a ride. I mean, Linda Berberich has just shown us, wow, creativity, data, rapid prototyping, and even a bit of ice show flair can come together to revolutionize how we actually learn. And it doesn't matter who you are or where you're starting from. Like Linda says, there is a way around that, and we all learn differently. So that pain you're probably facing right now, or that challenge you're probably facing right now, just remember that the hero's journey starts at discomfort. And I think Linda just really helped to shine the light for the path forward. So if today's episode really maybe stalked your curiosity or gave you a fresh perspective, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and maybe share this with a friend who's maybe looking for innovation, and just upskilling themselves or doing or having something remarkable for themselves. And yeah, I can't thank Linda enough for the time that we spent on the call today. Look in the show notes for all those show links that we are going to be sharing with you this. Until next time, bye for now.